All right, welcome everyone to the first ever episode of Unwrapped. We're here with Cody Ashworth, an animator, character artist, and much more. This is going to be our first interview delving into the life of Cody Ashworth. Where did he study, what he is, what he does, his first job, and the theme of the first interview right now is going to be how easy or tough it is from someone to get his first job after film school, and what can you do to make sure you're getting that first job. We're gonna venture into what things we should know before we head into film school, what things he wish he should know, and what jobs are out there for animators that not necessarily fall into the category of movie making. So with that kind of small intro, let's hear it from the man himself, Cody Ashworth. Tell us. Good morning or good evening, should I say?
Good evening.
I see your cat there is just licking herself,
It's
so
dark.
that's nice for everyone. Before we start with Cody, let's start with the cat's name. What's the cat's name?
That is Scar.
That is Scar. Maybe we should have an interview with Scar for the next episode.
Yeah, I'd like to figure out how he's licking himself like that. It's worth spending time on.
So, Cody, tell us a bit about yourself. Who are you? Where do you do? And where do you come from?
I'm Cody. I'm a character artist that specializes primarily in animation and rigging. I come from Nashville, Tennessee, which is southeast in the U.S., considered one of the many southern states known primarily by the accents, which most people consider it a drawl. They call it a southern drawl. So for those of you out there that I'll refer to it as our listener out there, if you're having trouble understanding me, I'm sorry. It's just the hand I was dealt.
Yeah, it's okay. We're gonna put subtitles on the bottom.
I work in this position. I work at a studio called Animax Designs in Nashville, Tennessee.
So you work at Animax Designs. So we're gonna get we're gonna get to it a bit later. What Animax Designs is all about. So let's start with the basics first for the people that are watching us right now. They don't know who I am. They don't know who you are. Let's start with kind of the basics, and the basic question that everybody asks is, why this industry? Why animation? What made you want to pursue this instead of becoming a doctor like your father wanted?
Well, first of all, Pops wanted me to become a mechanic. and work with him, which is cool. It's a job that people that are good at, they're mechanically inclined, to fix things, can excel at, and work for yourselves. Most people drive a vehicle, so how far back do you want me to go, Pan? Do you want me to go like to childhood?
Well, go as far as back as you want, as long as it's relevant. Don't start, I was born in a dark, stormy night, But take it away.
The river Styx. So from the time I was very, very young, let's say 3 years old, and I'll skip really quickly because I stay on this 3-year-old swing for very long, so bear with me. That's when I started drawing, was at 3, and within a couple of years, I got to experience a ton of inspiring movies, and shortly after, I think it was 1994 or 5 when Toy Story first came out.
Mm-hmm.
and that blew my mind. And I always liked special effects and everything, and I always knew I wanted to do something in it. I just never knew exactly what my niche wanted to be. I just knew that I I really enjoyed it all. So that's what got me on the path, was just finding a love for art, and I think the quiet nature of it, and um, the focus that you can achieve, and you just kind of people. I think people, true artists, I don't think, and I'm not throwing us into that category. I like to think I am, or you are. I just um, I think that I don't want to take for granted that the focus and how much time passes by so fast while you're doing the crafts,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like this. Um, the closest thing I've ever seen anybody kind of make a visualization of that is the Pixar movie Soul that came out, and you see
Mm-hmm.
the people getting into their groove,
Yeah, yeah,
and
yeah,
they're
yeah.
like all the colors and the notes are coming
Yeah,
around them,
they're
and
they're
like,
they're in the zone.
yeah, you're in this there exactly. You're in that zone, and I think there's something super nice about it. I think tons of people, uh, you know, classify that as like some sort of meditation. So, uh, yeah, it's nice. It's like not only is it like a healing process, it's like I don't know, it's like a safety net, and something um, you can use that time valuably doing those crafts.
Yeah.
I think I think that's what taught me from the beginning.
So 3 years old, growing up, always kind of have that itch to draw and become an artist, kind of and expressing yourself. Now you become, time goes by, you become what, 19, 20, 21, and then you go to film school. Am I right?
That's right.
Is that the time frame? So for those of you who don't know, Cody and I went to the same film school. So this is not sponsored, but let's time goes by. You figure out you want to pursue this, and you're like, okay, the best thing for me to do right now is to go to film school and try to hone my skills, learn what I can learn. So tell us, where did you go to film school? What did you do? And how was your overall experience there?
um, so I was started I started out at a university,
Yeah.
and um, freshman year, I mean, just the my grades weren't good enough out of uh, high school to skip any of the preliminary courses that they kind of throw at you on a university level.
Mm-hmm.
And I ended up having to take like the basics of the basic, starting out at university school. Um, I had a really good time, but I flunked out of all my basic classes, and
So
then
you
ended up.
you started university like to become an animator, like an artist, or something completely different?
Oh, my family wanted me to do something more grounded and black and white,
Yeah.
uh, like engineering or architecture or something like that. And so that was going to be my kind of like start to that. And
Yeah.
I think I got so disheartened um, by the people that I was around. And even though I had a good time, socially with my friends and some of my family in school, it just wasn't a place for me.
Yeah.
So, um, I mean, I kind of knew that, but the social excitement of being there kind of enamored me enough to stay. And that was just a young mistake for somebody that's like 18 years old, uh, and then turning 19. I mean, honestly, talking about schools, I think it's kind of ridiculous to send you off at 18 and know exactly what you want to do,
Yeah.
you know. Um, and I knew I wanted to do something with art, but then again, like, where do you start? So certain things need to happen in order for you to figure out what steps to take. And I didn't know what those steps looked like yet. But when I flunked out of university, I ended up going to an art institute um, in Nashville, which no longer exists. And luckily, there I was able to get a taste of some of the um, animation software.
Hmm.
Um, I think um, the main thing that they were trying to teach was you had to take a lot of basic courses like life drawing, which is good for anything that you do. It's always good to have uh, fundamental drawing skills and be able to learn about anatomy and stuff like
Yeah, yeah.
that.
Say that to the
And
guy that
color.
can't draw stick figures.
Well, I mean, um, I was I don't think that wasn't to just skip forward. It turns out that wasn't the place for me either. And there was a but what it did do was it told me that I was going in the right direction. So if I could find a place that I could study at, and they had the mentors that you would hope for in a program that would teach you um, the fundamentals or advanced techniques of animation or rigging. I didn't even know what rigging was at that time. We were doing basic like 3D modeling and rendering and 3ds Max, and then all these other basic courses, which um, that school, as I said before, it doesn't exist anymore. They talked about how they had all these professionals that would help you, and they could teach these things, but then you get in these classes after taking basic classes and you're excited to get in, and then the mentors, like, man, I mean, another disheartening thing was realizing that a school has misled you into believing that they had instructors that were proficient in things, and turns out they weren't. So that helped motivate me to get to a different place. I didn't know at the time that the new place was going to be literally all the way across the country.
Yes.
um, but
All the way across another country.
yeah, exactly.
So, were you stressing? Like, did you have any stress? Which I'm guessing you would, because now you are out of the second school now, which is not exactly what promised. So you went through one university which your heart wasn't into it, right? Because it's not
Yep.
what you want to do. So, you go
Yep.
out of that and you're like, okay, damn, I'm gonna have to find something that speaks to me. Then you find this school, you go there, it's not what it seems to be. That didn't pan
And
out. Like, did the
yep.
stress start to come, like, kind of creeping out, and maybe thinking like, oh my god, like, what am I gonna do? Or were you like not stressed at all about it?
Um, I think there was some stress. I think because I was still 20 years old at that time, um, I wasn't feeling life stress yet, which is probably typical, unless you're cast out of your house and at an early age. I had a lot of support from family that, you know, whether they believed in the cause or not, they were going to back whatever I wanted to do, and I had a really good friend system. Um, One of my best friends, Scott, he um, gave me a place to live that he didn't charge me hardly any rent for. Um, I don't think in the time before I ended up uh, taking a cross country trip to come to Vancouver, he didn't charge me any rent. I think I was living with my family. And plus, one other thing is, I don't think I was feeling the stress because I wasn't going through it alone. I had another friend from a different state that was with me at the art institutes, and um, he was going through the same thing. Like, we both dropped out of that school at the same time because I think we both realized that we were capable of pushing ourselves to do this thing because we were so enamored with it that um, we were a good support system for one another and backed each other. So when we started submitting our portfolios to different schools to try and get in, um, we looked at those schools together, and we both ended up getting in uh, to similar schools. So, as a matter of fact, the same school, and we both made that trip.
Hmm.
And so, yeah, I don't think I had much stress because of the support system that I had.
But
It's really easy, like
yeah,
especially somebody your own age, you know. Um,
it's good to
so
have
that
that
was,
someone to go through this together.
yeah.
And
Well, especially a big move like that,
yeah,
you know. We were both guys, both from southern states, midwestern southern states, and we had similar experiences growing up, and we we had very similar ideas of what it was that we wanted to do after we got a taste of um, that side of the craft.
yeah,
So it was super easy to bounce ideas off of each other. And when we got accepted, man, we were ecstatic. And I'll never forget. I was at my grandparents, and this is in Burns, Tennessee, and I remember like the day I got the call from the recruiter, and I think Parker had already gotten his results back to see if he had been accepted or not. I remember my grandmother was washing dishes in the kitchen, and she had just I was telling her how excited I was, to get into the school, and I couldn't wait to, you know, give it my all. It's a big change, and she looked over at me and she said, if you do get accepted to the school, um, your your grandfather and I are going to pay for that.
hmm,
And I was just like, woof, that's nuts.
yeah.
How could you ever like just for it to come off that easy?
And it's an
I
expensive
was
school too.
yeah, and you're in a different country, so Canada is pretty expensive anyway. So
Yeah.
over the U.S. in a lot of ways. So
So
um,
we never said the school that you got accepted for. So your final school, the one that you went and you know opened all the doors for you. Where did you go for?
Vancouver Film School.
Yeah.
That's where I ended up.
Yeah.
I applied to a couple of different ones, but I don't know. As soon as something about VFS sold me, I don't know if it was their marketing or
Yeah, it's probably their marketing.
yeah, because I was thinking about I was trying to go to Noman as well,
Hmm.
and I didn't want to go to another 3-year program, because if I did, I could have gone to like SCAD, or RISD or
Any other
something.
kind of more
Yeah,
spread out program.
yeah, yeah. And SCAD, I mean, that's the Savannah College of Art Design, and I believe they're an accredited university,
Hmm.
but they offer BAs in, you know, things like animation and
Yeah.
stuff like that.
So you finally get accepted to Vancouver Film School in Canada. You fly here, start school, and for those who don't know, Vancouver Film School, which I still think it's the same today. It's been many years since we finished, but so the way Vancouver
About
Film
seven.
School, yeah, yeah. So the way Vancouver Film School works, for those who don't know, it's a 1 year program, a diploma, I'm guessing, that you go and they just fly you through whatever it is you choose to do. So, for example, Cody and I went to the 3D program, right? So they have film production, 3D, screenwriting, you name it. If it's film related, they have it. So you start your 3D, for example. You have the first 3 months, which is your basic knowledge. They're gonna teach you anything from kind of history to start basic modeling, basic lighting, maybe some rigging, and all that stuff, some animation. When I say basic stuff, they start you from the beginning in the first 3 months, so you can have an overview of what kind of principles are out there. And then after your first 3 months, you have to choose your stream. So do you want to be a modeler? Do you want to be a compositor in visual effects? Do you want to be an animator, a rigger? So you choose what you want to specialize, and then the streams kind of split out. You get assigned into a studio, and then based on what you choose each class, you get to kind of specialize in that. And specialize, I'm gonna put it in quotes, and you can expand on that too, because you don't really specialize in 1 year. Vancouver Film School basically is a crash course of endless nights of not sleeping just to make deadlines and try and absorb in your tiny brain as much information as you can.
And something to say about that is the recruiters will tell you that it is a difficult program. Like the way that was geared, I'm not sure if it is the same today. I'm sure they haven't let up, because they do have a good placement rate.
Yeah.
Because there's tons of alumni, and a lot of them are really awesome people, and they push you really hard to make something really kick ass. So, but what they should say is, hey, this program will be hard for somebody that has 5 years of experience. They should kind of quantify that a little bit better, because I'm sure we'll touch on this again too. Yeah. I had a time.
yeah. We all had some time there. So just to kind of push towards that direction, to talk about that, and just don't sue us. But for a bit of a clarification, whatever we say today, this podcast is not. It's not an expert opinion. It's Cody's opinion, my opinion, based on experiences on the industry, on the film school, and everything. So everything you hear here, everything you hear today, just take it with a grain of salt, because it all comes down to personal experience, right? Cody may have had some background experience in just drawing, but I think you went to Vancouver Film School like a virgin, as we say. You had no 3D background or anything.
In a different way. I did, because in high school we were offered vocational classes, and I took 4 years of CAD programming. So
I want to go to your high school.
Wilson County in Tennessee that's a well-funded school district. Very well funded. Yeah. So we had some cool toys. But yeah, 4 years of AutoCAD, mixed with some 3ds Max and Blender at the time. Blender back then is not what it is today.
Oh yes, Blender back then. It was the terrifying program that only if you had the balls to tackle it, you could.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, just so just to end this, like, whatever we hear is just our personal experience, and that's it. And so let's continue. So you go to Vancouver Film School. You start the program. Before we delve into what experiences you had in Vancouver Film School, like, what's some of the things that now in hindsight you wish you knew before you actually entered?
Before that amount of money was spent, regardless if it wasn't spent by me, it would have been so much more beneficial for me to have just invested a small amount of money into taking some online courses, and just spending, like, if I would have just waited 4 years and worked a job that I didn't like, and just learned in that time and pushed myself, then I would have had a much easier time at VFS. With that said, I think not having the software that I needed to do what I wanted to do was tough. So you're kind of look, as a young person going for any kind of career specialization using software, some of those are not readily available
Yeah.
for your budget. And so I'm not saying there's no way to get those softwares. I'm just saying that, for somebody that's trying to learn a good deal of them, it's it's pretty it's pretty hard
Mm-hmm.
to do that without going to a school that will supply you a student license or whatever the case is. So yeah, I mean, I don't know what I would have done with if I would have like taken out a loan,
Yeah.
if I could even get one at the time to like um, lease the software.
Yeah, yeah.
But the option was go to a specialized school so you can learn these things.
Okay, so talk about Vancouver Film School. So you went there. What what did you take out of it? Like, how was your experience, your personal experience with the school? What is it that stuck with you? What is it that didn't stuck with you? Uh,
Uh,
you know,
Everything stuck
go
with
on a tangent, my friend. The floor is yours.
me. Everything stuck with me. That was such a cool experience going from like small town in Tennessee, which I say I'm from Nashville, but growing up in outer lying counties, let's just say I was born in Nashville. And Nashville's not like a huge city by any means, but it's also in a small state in the United States, and it's not one of the most expensive cities to live in the world, and it's not Vancouver.
Yeah.
So going up there was a radical change, and soaked in everything I could. VFS was exactly what they made it out to be, especially after we moved to the new studio in Gastown. Because whenever I started, we actually we started. My buddy and I started our trip in Vancouver. Um, we had like 2 or 3 weeks before school started, and I think I've told you this story before. We broke into the old campus, uh, and were found by the studio coordinator, and he asked us. He's like, "You guys new?" And it's like, we start the next term, in a couple of weeks, and we were just so excited. We wanted to come up here. They're like, "Well, we usually don't do this, but come on, let's give you a tour." And the old campus was kind of similar to the new campus in the way that they promoted every project that was like a high budget
Yeah.
um, motion picture
Yeah.
that
The
their
best movies
alumni
came
worked on.
out,
Yeah,
blockbusters. Yeah.
just the hallways were just lined with picture frames,
Yeah.
filled with photos of either like the movie posters or and had the names under of like the alumni that worked on it. And that's just really like, because one of the it's really enthralling to see that as a student and say, because it's almost like they're telling you, like, you chose us for this reason, we're going to get you in there.
Yeah.
And that's true for people that have a good amount of experience. They may land a really cool job out of the gate. You're talking about, because some people, and Pan, you probably had some people like this in your graduating class where they were already in the industry for several years.
Yeah.
And they just came in there to update their portfolio. And I was like, wow, I guess it's worth that amount of money.
Or even just for the work permit, because for those who don't know, so Vancouver Film School used to have a deal with the government that after you finished your 1 year studies, you were getting a 1 year postgraduate work permit to work in Vancouver, which was also a big incentive for people to come and study at that school, right? Which is also our incentive, at least one of the incentives why I went there too. So, you go there, again, me, a person before going there, never touched the 3D program before in my life. you go there and you see all these posters like Cody says, and you're gonna work in the Avengers and the superhero movies and the $500 million budget movies, and then you see next to you your class the other 20 people that are with you that are have their own studios back in their country. They've worked 15 years in advertisement. And you're like, you see the stuff that they do, and then you start thinking about it like, oh, maybe that's why it's such a high statistic, right? Because the vast majority of the people that would go to these kind of schools are people that want to get like a demo reel out, or just maybe hone the skills a bit more, and they already have a tremendous background experience. So when you account those people into the statistics, and then you have people like Cody and me and many others, that this is just something that they have passion for, but they never actually worked on it, then the mountain and the dream suddenly just becomes so much larger and so much more insurmountable. What's the word, Cody? I'm not from here. uh,
Um,
but you know what I mean.
yeah,
It's like it just becomes a giant obstacle. Like, you thought you were just gonna be like, oh yeah, I'm gonna go learn this, and then immediately I'm gonna land a job, and then you see the skill level and the skill gap between you and other people. You're like, oh, I may not be able to land that job after all.
yeah, and you're so motivated to get your project
Yeah,
done that you're not even thinking about that after after a while, you know? Like you're thinking you're just gonna get this job, and it doesn't matter if like you don't see what you're working on as a pile of garbage. um, you're just excited to get it done because of how many hours you invest that year.
yeah.
When it's a lot.
It
You're
comes,
so
but yeah, the beginning it begins like as a, oh my god, how can I compete with those people? And by the end, you're like, I put this much time into it, I'm gonna finish it.
yeah. Well, it becomes like a romance.
Yeah,
You're like dating this project,
yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
then it doesn't matter that like everybody else is like this isn't a good idea. You love it, and it doesn't matter what anybody else thinks. But that's not the goal here.
Yeah,
The goal is to do something that is going to get you a job. They're not those mentors are not there to take your money.
yeah,
Like they're working a job, sure, but they want to see you succeed too, and they're um, they're going to be hard on you. Um, my mentors were hard on me. I almost flunked out. Um, at one point, I was talking to the head of administration in our program, and they said if you don't make at least I think it was an 80 or 85 average in this next term, um, we're gonna let you go. And I was already like
yeah.
I was already burning the candle at both ends. And I told them, I was like, I am trying. I said, they told me it was hard, but it's like you're standing in front of a judge and it's your first offense, and he's gonna sentence you to like 5 years automatically in jail time instead of like
Give you a
some
ticket.
community service, some community service and probation or something. And yeah, they just throw the book at you. And I don't know, I still can't say to this day whether that was a scare tactic or not, by them, because you paid for the school. What does it matter um, if you're passing or failing, other than like you're getting the job done. I mean, dude, there was somebody in our class that I'm pretty sure, I won't say any names, but I'm pretty positive there was someone that had a learning disability,
Mhm.
um, and really couldn't speak English either. So, how are you as a mentor going to get your notes across to that person to be able to do what you need to do to um, reach your goals?
Yeah.
And that was one of the only things that I saw while I was there that you know everybody in the class was kind of like, what's going on? you know.
Yeah,
Like if I'm getting threatened to be kicked out of school and this person is still like, you know, in school, then like where's the where's the balance there? And so that's why I kind of say I don't know if it was a scare tactic or not for me. Like either you're gonna uh, make this 80 average, which is a high grade at that school, by the way. Like if you're making an 80, 85 or something like that, like you're doing really good. Because they grade on a professional scale, it seems like.
yeah, yeah, they do sometimes.
Um,
Um, I wanna. So you said that you were about to flank out, and I
oh,
wanna bring into a story that I know that you told me that one of the reasons, and I'm gonna use you as one of the bad examples
yeah,
of
be
kind of want not to kind of over obsess, especially when you're in film school, is
oh
that
yeah,
you decided that you want to learn everything at once. So that was kind of the crux of the problem of instead of just focusing becoming good at the one thing so you can get your reel out and get your job, you just kind of got hooked into this 3D world, and then you just went, I will learn everything right now. So instead, your brain can only handle so much. So instead of just focusing on one thing, you just split out into a million directions.
yeah.
So what happened with that?
Devil's in the details, as they say, and this goes back to what I said at the beginning whenever I was a kid. And it wasn't just, when you see something like Toy Story and you're that young and all these animated movies and you just all you know is you want to make that. Like there's not like a specific part like, oh, I love the colors, I just want to paint
Yeah.
or the motions or whatever the case is. I felt the same way as a 21-year-old going through VFS. And I decided to specialize in animation because animations it was it was something that presented this this world of black and white meets gray artist mentality because you're thinking in all of these principles that are laid out for you to the 12 principles of animation, and you're thinking about it like, wow, from my experience with making things that are mechanical, with AutoCAD or designing a house or something, to um, this world of gray and puppeteering and animation, and but there's rules to animation, but you can also break the rules and create new rules, and it was like that balance of black and white and gray, and that was very enticing to me. Uh, as much as I loved the visual effects stuff and the rigging and modeling, character modeling, and prop development, and just everything that goes into that, animation is what stuck out to me. So that's what I decided to major in. So, um, I can't remember if it's like halfway or a quarter of the way through your program. They give you a good taste of several different courses, and um, then there's a moment where you're choosing a specialization where you take more advanced. The rest of the time, you take advanced courses towards that specialization, and then you kind of have a minor that you want to focus on. And they kind of broke it down into three categories: your animation, modeling, and surfacing and visual effects. And so I chose an animation major, and then I think it was visual effects minor. I could be wrong about that. I'll have to look at my diploma. Uh, but yeah, that was really hard because they try and pin you in and make some classes mandatory. At that point, some classes are mandatory and others are optional.
Yep.
Um, and it was really hard to stay out of all of the optional courses too. But eventually, you're pressed so thin on time that taking those aren't an option for somebody that was as inexperienced as I was. Um, but that doesn't mean that you can't, you know, still spend time in places that you don't need to be spending
Yeah.
time. Um, we had dailies or weeklies, um, because at that point it's you know, they what the animation mentors wanted you to do was, if you didn't have any previous experience, which they're going to know. Luckily for me, I, kind of picked up modeling decent enough to develop a character. But then there was the rigging side of things. And I was like, I've already modeled the character. I'm going to rig it and I'm going to animate it. Well, if you've never done those things before, it's probably going to take you a lot of time
Yeah.
to do that.
Yeah.
And eventually you start getting behind on what your
Actually supposed to do
deadlines
it. Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, this is supposed to be due. You're supposed to be almost done at this time. And the goal is to make about roughly between like a minute and a minute and a half demo reel. And some people decide to do like a storytelling. Some people just will go towards doing a technical animation skit, where it shows several different characters. They want you to pick out like a rig that's already been built that is VFS approved, and use that for your animation purposes. I wasn't having any of that, so
I'm gonna make everything myself.
make everything myself. And eventually, my mentor said, "I'm going to start cutting shots that you want to do, and I'm going to, you're not going to finish this on time. What are you spending? You're coming to me with dailies, but you don't have any new animation done. What are you spending time doing? I'm modeling an environment, but I wasn't fast enough at modeling. Like I knew the principles, but I wasn't fast enough at it to get enough done to be focusing on a rig or an animation. I mean, I didn't know enough about rigging to keep myself from having to redo the rig or messing up weight paints, because I maintained max influences and things just weren't going right with it. And so it just drug on, made it really difficult. And eventually, you get in a situation where people will just kind of like throw their hands up at you.
Yeah.
And they're just going,
Because
this could be
I'm
so
guessing
much better.
because I'm guessing at that point in your mind, you're like, you're doing all these things, and you're again, like you said before, you're in the zone, right? You want to do your own thing, which is another thing that's kind of like a bit of a trap, really. Depends depending on what your work is supposed to be, and depending on your target audience or why you're making it, you learn at some point with experience to kind of detach yourself from it. This work is personal because I'm making it for me. This work shouldn't be personal because I'm making it for a client or a job. And especially at VFS, when you're starting and you're so into that world, everything is personal because it's your reel. It's your first thing that you're gonna make that's yours, and then you're thinking like, I made the model and it looks awesome because I made it, right? It's like me, Cody made this, and then you want to rig it because you want to say Cody did this shit, right? But it's like a trap that you keep falling into, because especially if you want to, let's say in your case you want to become an animator, you want to show an animation reel, and the mentors are there, like, as you said, they're not there to take your money. Especially the mentors are there to make sure that you understand and you do what's best for you to get that first job. So what is it, the mentor that made you basically kind of snap out of it and be like, okay, let me focus now on this?
No, I never snapped out of it. I chose to do a project that was way too personal, and it wasn't even something that I would have done personally if my influences wouldn't have been where they were. Like I said at the beginning of this, my grandparents said, if you get accepted to the school, we'll pay for that. And I was like, I got to do something in return that means a lot. Like, they sent me to do something here. I decided to do, try to tackle a character design and an animation in celebration of my grandfather, Sammy. His name is Samuel, and his nickname by people, because for a lot of people that aren't familiar with like cowboy culture, my grandfather is very much your if you look at him, he is totally a cowboy.
Yeah.
I'm not a man of many words. the attire is all there, his lifestyle. Um, he's well traveled. He's um,
He
he's
has a
one of the
horse.
he has horses. Yeah, I grew up
I
going
didn't know
horseback
that, but
riding and
I
stuff.
guessed.
So very much there's parts of his life, where people would his nickname was Yosemite Sam, and so there's all kinds of like Looney Tunes memorabilia around the
Yeah.
house, and they've got a giant saloon style bar that's really cool that says I think it's got a if I can remember right, they've got a big wood carved panel hanging over their liquor shelf and cabinet, and it says, Yosemite Sam over the top of it. And so I decided to do um, an animation reel dedicated to him, and I was like, I'm gonna build this character that looks like him, but is more of like a slapstick um, style of 3D, a 3D character that kind of resembles like a sort of a Looney Tunes vibe, um, but going for more of like the character style from like Wreck It Ralph.
Yeah.
Um, and uh, the character turned out nice. A couple of the mentors were, they were glad that I got that far. They're like, okay, you got this now. Hopefully you can tackle the rig. And, the rig wasn't the best, and the weight paints weren't the best and stuff. And I really cut myself short on time, but I chose a project that was going to be personal, and I wanted to do it because of the gift that they had given me to
Yeah.
go there. And so even to me, even if it sucked,
Yeah.
they would still be proud and think
For
it
what
was
you did.
just
Yeah.
think it was cool,
Yeah.
because they never see anything like that, and have their first grandson come in and say, show them something like this and say, I did this and I dedicated my time uh, to this cause. And, I'm glad that I did it. Uh, I don't know if I would do anything differently. If I knew what I know now, I definitely would have. I would have done it better. Um, but I don't know if I would take back the opportunity to do that with him as the source material. Um, but yeah, with that being said, you choose a route that's personal, and you're much less willing to give up on your creative liberties.
Yeah.
So
Even if it's stuff that are legit things, that changes are going to help you get your first job.
yeah,
Because it's that ego, right? Which it segues very well into your personal reel versus the time gap until you get your first job.
absolutely.
uh, so, spoiler alert, it didn't work out, I'm guessing, that well with, first recruited here and there to get you your first job.
I didn't get I didn't get I don't think I spoke to any recruiters. And I noticed you mentioned something about how they were offering, working VFS was working with the Canadian government at the time and offering like a work permit post graduation.
Yeah.
I was only offered up until May, like a month, I think a month after I graduated, to stay in the country. So that wasn't an option for me.
Yeah, I think they brought it, like, I think a couple of years after you stopped, and then they just stopped it on my year.
Yeah. So I ended up staying there the full time I could and trying to make something happen, but realizing, I was relieved to be done, because it was such a difficult time. And so even though I didn't get a job, I wasn't really disheartened. I was like, maybe this is just something that's not going to come immediately for me. And it didn't. It didn't come for
How many?
almost 7 years. 7 years later.
So, how old were you when you finished Vancouver Film School?
21.
21. So from 21 to 28.
Or maybe 22 years old.
Let's say 7 years gap between you and your first job. A couple of questions. Why do you think it took you so long to find your first job? Is it something like personal work, you think? Is it because you didn't chase it enough, or is it because the things that you had were liking based on the jobs that you were applying, or
I think I was shooting too high
yeah,
application wise. I mean, it's not that I wasn't applying, I was, and I was working on small things here and there to spruce it up, spruce up the demo reel. And you just need more. You need more variety, And I was probably choosing the wrong things to animate, or not putting enough time in the acting, or not not a great order of operations person
yeah.
from the get go.
So
So it took me a while to find something. I knew that I had proficiencies in some areas that I could be beneficial, like um, modeling and rendering at that point. And I saw animation. The longer that I spent trying to chase animation, the more I saw it as this big monstrous goal that is way harder to get a job in. And I was like, why didn't I just do a rotomation reel and get a job? Why didn't I just because all I wanted at that point was just to be part of the industry. Like, I didn't care where the job was going to come from. I just wanted to be making a living in some aspect of the industry, and I just couldn't do it.
what
Um,
was the most frustrating thing in that whole time period when you couldn't find a job? What's the one thing that kept either, kicking you in the balls, as we say, or the thing that kind of stressed you out or demotivated you or frustrated you, however you want to put it?
Living with family. um,
Is it living
I've
with family because you can't start your family, or living with family because
no,
it took you so long, you wanted to do something on your own and you didn't have the means to do it?
uh, yeah, both of those things. I mean, um, not that my family. No, you know what? It's just this. Here's the older members of your family. Like, say, for me, I was like the first grandchild, and so like all of my aunts and uncles, like you grow up knowing those people, and then later in life, like for me, it came down to I lived with my pops, and I did some diesel mechanics work with him to help get me by. He's like, if you're gonna live with me, you're gonna work. And he didn't really. I think I was about 24 at this time, and he didn't really think that that was going to go anywhere for me, like working in the industry. So um, his lifestyle was different than mine. But we met in the middle in a lot of ways, and I ended up living with my grandparents again, and um, my aunt and uncle, and my mom, and moved around several times over a couple of years, and that's around the time when I met you, which was in 2017, I believe. And I mean, you guys know I was having
It
a
was
hard time.
2015, but it's okay.
Was it really? I graduated BFS in 2015,
Yeah, but you were
I
in
think.
the. We're gonna cut it out. He was in the channel of the gamers. Maybe it's 2016.
Oh my goodness.
Uh,
So sorry about that. I I think so. I struggled heavily because of there was a really hard family dynamics are so weird, man, and sometimes people have these hidden expectations that they won't tell you about. It's like your family saying, I'm going to do you this, come stay with us, work on what you need to. We're not going to ask for anything, you know, um, just keep doing what you're doing. We know you're a hard worker and all that. And then there's all these like underlying hidden expectations that come into fruition where um, you come in and you say, okay, you're sure you don't want me to pay anything to stay here? And they say no. And then you say, then you're like, okay, um, like no chores, no like helping out with the gas bill, water bill, like whatever. no, 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 you're fine. And then it turns out, you know, these these things that you asked about on the front end, aren't really as they seem. So it causes some complications, because people that don't understand what we do, they just see you sitting in front of a computer or like
Yeah,
drawing,
yeah,
concepting and stuff. They just don't. Some people just don't understand it,
yeah.
so they just think that you're like gaming or like dicking off, and
Just
that's
wasting your
not.
life.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's not the case. And so, um, and uh, you get caught up in the middle of other couple dynamics.
yeah,
Aunt and uncle married, um, um, my grandparents married, pops had a girlfriend. You're just like this entity that's like moving in between these like dynamic relationships, and you get caught up in the middle, and like people want to use you. This is like a therapy whipping post to talk about their issues, and like all you want to do is like just work and focus on what you want, and it just becomes this whole thing. So if I struggled at all, and getting off track, it's because I was in less than ideal situations for myself, and I wasn't. I was wanting to work as little as possible, like at a job I didn't want to do, in order to spend the majority of my time getting a decent portfolio together to get some kind of job in the industry. So yeah, I think that was the hardest for sure.
and
Is being part of this like scripted
yeah, yeah.
family scenario, and you're already playing a role that you didn't know you were playing. And that's tough, man, because there's like it's like emotional terrorism. um because they don't understand, like some people don't realize they're guilting you,
Mhm.
you know and yeah, just,
Okay, so you finish on film school with a demo reel that's more personal than work oriented, then that kind of bites you in the ass in professional wise. So you spend
yep.
the next few years, kind of moving from family to family. You can't start your own life because you can't get a job in the industry, um, and you getting the job in the industry now becomes slower and slower because you live through those situations that you just said. So you finally, like, 7 years later, you finally get your job, your first job, let's say your first full-time job in the industry, because I know you did some
Yep.
freelance small things here and there, online
Yep.
and stuff, which I don't really consider the first job in the industry. So this is your first full-time, you know you're employed, you have a social security number there. um, how did you come to find Animax Designs, and what is Animax Designs?
So I when I found Animax, um I had just moved back to Nashville, and I was driving Uber, and that was like my saving grace, because there's something that you're not clocking in to do, and you just drive, and you're able to like make money to get by, and then have your own whole schedule. So I'm out doing trips, and searching on Indeed or whatever, for job opportunities. I'm like, look, I know, I'm living in Nashville. I don't know. I know there's not many opportunities here. So, at this point, I'm like thinking that I'm probably going to have to move out of state again, if I want to get a job. And at this point, I have, um, more to show. But I had gotten, off track with moving around a whole lot. And so it took, there's a lot of time in moving. So uh, I found Animax online, um, but the story is actually cooler than just like finding a job online and applying for it. I found, you know, what I saw was a job listing that fit me perfectly. It was for a 3D character artist, but the proficiencies under the description page was everything that I was about, um, everything that I had focused on and the specializations that I loved, which I would not have had if I wouldn't have chosen the path I did. So they needed a Swiss Army knife, and here I was, years later, focused a lot more on animation, spent more time on animation, but also grew a ton of proficiencies in all these other areas. And so I applied for it. And the next day, my roommate at the time, Scott, was doing some uh, zoning work and working with a business partner, and they were driving down the street that Animax is on in their new studio. And he drove past it, and this is just the kind of guy that Scott is. When he saw Animax, all he all he saw in his head was animate. And he calls me immediately. He said, "Hey, have you ever heard of this company called Animax Designs?" And I was like, "I just literally yesterday applied for this job at Animax Designs." And he goes, "Well, check this out. My business partner uh, is one of his part-time workers in real estate is also the recruiter at Animax." And I go, "Well, how about that?" So he said, "Is that a place that you could sink your teeth into?" And I was like, "Dude, based on the job description of this place, it sounds like an ideal dream job." And he said, "Well, let me talk to Mr. X and see if he can put in a good word for you." And so we leave it at that. Not too much time goes by, and I get a call from the recruiter about Animax at the time, and said that I passed your portfolio along to our creative director, um, who hopefully we can get on your podcast soon, and he he likes what he sees, but he's wondering if you can showcase something a little bit more technical as far as rigging and animation goes. Here's what we're looking for, XYZ. And it was something that I was like, I can come up with something. Can you get it to us in like by Monday? And it's like a Thursday.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, yeah. Thank you so much for calling. It was a fairly long call, and I was actually out Ubering whenever I got the call from her. And uh, so I went back home immediately and started game planning it. And then Scott comes home, and we're talking back and forth. I was like, I just got off the phone with the recruiter. You know, they want me to do this. I don't know what to do. Like, help me come up with something cool that's just gonna blow their minds. And we're going over like all of these. Like, this is probably actually a good time to talk about what Animax does and what they are the best in the world at. Um, Animax Designs specializes the characters in motion. So they uh, specialize in robotics and animatronics, and some of the best puppets that you'll see in live performances, um, television, themed entertainment. Um, they just they kill it as far as look development, as far as functionality. They're the best. So they wanted to see something from me that was mechanical in nature, functioned uh, in like a real world setting, and that showcased a level of technical precision that they could, you know, enough of something for them to see that I could do this job, because this is not your average job in the industry.
Yeah.
It's a lot of bit more applied. It's like a fringe science. It's the craziest thing.
Let's say it's not the job that every young animator that's starting the industry is gonna think of looking up, right?
Probably the
Yeah.
last job
Yeah. It's a
that you'll
very
think.
out of left field job, which brings me to a very good point of, looking for your first job shouldn't always be, let me hit up all the AAA studios that do movies and animated features. Your first job doesn't have to be Pixar and Disney and ILM and Weta Digital. All the big movies. It can be smaller studios. It can be studios that have nothing to do with movies, like your case, but also you can also apply what you learn to that job. If you want to animate, what better thing to animate than robots? Real life robots, not even something on screen, right? Like, and I want to believe that if it was me animating that robot, the amount of satisfaction that comes out of it, it's a lot greater than just animate a puppet, like a CG character on screen, because it's a live thing. You can tell it to go left and then go touch it while it's going left, right?
Yeah.
So
which are so it's a totally different world, and yeah, you're only working from a screen, on one side. You're literally, these rigs that I'm developing and that our team is developing are just as you would build them in a film pipeline, or a game pipeline, with an exception of a root joint or two, so there's and then you're seeing your animation in real life, and this is not, it's an incredible thing to witness. It really is, because you really start getting a taste of oh wow, we're doing something that sci-fi fanatics have been warning people about
since Terminator 1, goddammit.
And it's getting more and more extreme. So yeah, so back to how I got into Animax. I had to come up with something to show that was technical, and it was really funny. We went back and forth and like all these little things. Oh, maybe you should do like a mechanical spider. It's like, people have done that. What about like a really cool functional robot arm? It's like, people have done that. And then it's all because my buddy Scott was junked out on this subgenre of dubstep band that had a song called Centipede. And he was just junked out. He just like recently put a sound system in his Tahoe, and like just blasted it every chance he could get. And he's just like, dude, what if you built a functioning mechanical centipede? And I was like, first of all, centipedes have like a crazy amount of legs. I've got to go and dig and do like biologist type research on like how a centipede functions. I was like, that's a big undertaking in a couple of days. He's just like,
and it's not like anybody really wants to see a centipede move, right? Not one of the most pleasant things to look online.
Especially if you have some sort of phobia of things with
I don't know what you're talking about.
100 legs. So I never liked spiders, but you always hear that story of the dude that animated the ones from The Hobbit. Like he was actually an arachnophobic. They made him do it.
That's one way to get rid of your fear.
So he just adamant. He's just like, dude, if you can do this, I swear to God. And he's like, they're gonna hire you. He's like, if you can make this thing work, they're gonna hire you. And I was like, okay, but I've got to like make it work, and I've got to figure out like how I'm gonna drive it. Like, what functionality is gonna drive this thing? Like, is it gonna be like a series of gears connected to like some sort of like,
which is another extra layer,
battery.
Right? It's another extra layer of difficulty, because you don't actually have to just animate it biologically. You have to make it that you can cheat, let's say, in a traditional CG. This one, you have to make it work like it will getting built and work in real life.
Yeah, that's the goal.
Yeah.
And so, so there's a good deal of math involved in it, which isn't extremely hard. I know that you're a fan of mathematics. I'm a fan of mathematics. Um, it's played a big role in what I do at my current job. Um, it took uh, it took several. It took a lot of. It seems like it was more than 3 days, but it was only 3 days, and um, I ended up developing this mechanical centipede that was driven using a worm drive, uh, and I used some math to uh, tell it how many rotations it took in order for one cycle of the gear lying beneath the worm drive to cycle the leg movement of the centipede, and offset each section uh, of the centipede. So each leg was offset timing wise.
Yeah.
So it moved in the correct
Wavy.
wave that you see a centipede move in, and used some used a series of constraints to link the segments of the body together, and drove it along a curve and watched it work off of the simple expression that I wrote to cycle the rotations, and sent that in. They really liked that, and after that, I thought this was actually pretty funny. Uh, but after I sent that in, I did get a call from the creative director, and we had like kind of a soft interview on the phone, and we were kind of filling each other out. And uh, he said, "I'm going to send you an art test now." And I was like, but I just did the centipede. I was like, the centipede, right? Like the centipede. um, he's like, yeah, but still did the art test. He's like, you're probably not gonna have an issue with it. There's a set of instructions to follow, um, of ways that we like to see things here, and just do it and send it in. And so I did, and ended up getting a job after like an in-person interview. I believe I was offered the job that day that I was brought in for the interview. I can't really remember, but I started February 17th of 2020.
And now you're working on something that you love. I'm guessing, right? And it's like a dream
Yeah.
job, and you're working on something that's probably one of the coolest things that ever existed. to
Well, it's definitely.
to go there and see the things that you do every day. And the sad part is that not many people coming into this industry know about these opportunities.
Oh, um, if you're that's true. Um, I was completely blindsided by this company and what they do, and the fact that the workflows are so similar to what I would have used, or that you use with your colleagues in studios, and making that functional between an engineering department who's specializing in doing the really difficult math on figuring out how to build the mechanisms that live inside of these figures, and the lifespan that they spec them for, what drives the figures, how much force it outputs, how much stress each segment of the figure can maintain.
Mm-hmm.
You can't just, you know, animatronics and robotics are limited to our technology right now, and you can only output so much. Um, so when you're animating something like this, you have to take those limitations into account,
Yeah.
and you can't just take this, arm and stretch it.
Yeah.
You can't. You're not making stretchy rigs. Um, you're doing a very complex constraint system on to mechanical mechanical assets that are exported from uh, engineering software um, to and then into Maya, and you're reading a very technical um, figure, and then you're taking whatever IP that we're working on at the time, and you're skinning it over the mech. So um, you see these demonstrations where technical artists are showcasing their creature rigs with a skeleton base, and then a muscle system, and then a skin atop the muscle system, and they're doing fatty simulations and muscle twitch simulations and all these things, whereas we are literally skinning a Terminator, if you could say at times, where you've got this fully rigged mech underneath, and then you've got the skin on top, and you're able to see that in the viewport, which is like it's totally different than anything I've ever seen.
But and in a lot of ways, right? It's I mean, they're both working animation in movies, animating here. You still use the same disciplines, the same methodologies, but in some ways, I would imagine it's even a tiny bit. I'm not gonna say it's like a lot harder, but at least a tiny bit harder to animate something that's real and exists, because I personally work in animation, and like a lot of the times you can cheat in CG. Like you can easily cheat. Like you have a close up of the hands, but the character is not tall enough, and then you zoom out the camera in the viewport, and the camera the actual character is like 50 meters away, and the arms are just stretching across the whole scene, which is not realistic. But you cannot do that here. So you have the extra constraint of, you have to think of, how do I animate this to look real and enticing without cheating.
Yep. You're not you are not giving the liberties to fake things to camera.
Yeah.
You have to, there's no smear frames. There's no like squash and stretch. There are fundamentals that feature animation or slapstick style animations just aren't. They're not going to work here. But your goal as an animator is to bring that to life with the tools that you have, and in the limiting factors that exist while you're trying to do this. Create they create very big challenges in order to sell the believability of these characters. So you really need to, you can think about it a couple of ways. You can think about it like, oh, it's got to be easier then, because you're not having to do all these extras. And I'm like, dude, well, if your animation doesn't look good before you start doing these extras, then if you're adding extras on top of something that's already bad, it's not going to look any better. It's just going to look like a bigger mess.
Yeah, just going to look bad, but with extras.
Yeah, yeah. So to really sell the figure, and I mean, we're having to calculate for velocity and acceleration, because these are real world motors, and these motors have limitations. And if you're exceeding those, then you're going to get undesired results.
Yeah.
And so there's so many things that you have to maintain a clear sight on. On one side, you're this artist that's been paid to do what you're good at. Then most of the time it's living in an area of gray, and but you also have to think in a world of black and white too. So that's a big challenge, and I'm happy to have those challenges, honestly, because it's not something I was ever prepared for, and so it's like it's a happy surprise.
Yeah. And this is brings me closing. I want to go back into what you were doing in at Vancouver Film School. So Vancouver Film School, which can also be a lesson for new people, not just finishing school, is like you tried. You were thrown into this world, and you liked it so much that you try to do everything at once, before getting a job. You're trying to learn everything, but sometimes and as your mentor said, do this one thing so you can finish it, and the rest will come. And so now that you are at your job, you finally found your first job. Now, how do you find yourself learning new things? Isn't because my advice to people is usually learn your one thing at school, and do the real that you want to do to get your first job. And at your job, that's where you're gonna start learning the things. That's where that's where you're gonna start soaking the information from your colleagues, from your supervisors, from your mentors, from your leads, from everywhere. Do you find yourself now doing that? Is this the place now that you started your job and now your mind just expanded like tenfold because you just soaking information from everybody else, and this is the place
Absolutely.
to learn?
Absolutely. And not in ways that I intended it to.
Yeah.
Or expected it to.
Because it's all organic, I'm guessing.
Everything. What do you mean by organic?
What I mean is, like, it's not like you go to your work, every day. You're like, I want to learn this. It's like you do your stuff, and then problems arise and obstacles come, and then you're forced to learn a new thing, and then you get tasked with this thing to do. Let's say with job A, and then you try to do the job A, and you encounter something, and then that forces you to learn something new, and then your next project forces you to learn something new. So it's in a way, it's organic in a way that just doing the job that you're supposed to do forces you to learn more things, because it would never be the same thing. It will evolve, and it will force you to learn more things in order to reach your next goal, and your next goal will force you to learn more things in order to reach your next goal.
Yeah. And Animax is a very big proponent of learning things that um, you wouldn't typically be doing in your department, such as mold making or um, sculpting, hands-on sculpting, or paint, or integration and standards, where there's so many specs of hardware that you have to know to um, integrate into uh, some of the different techniques that you use to finalize a figure,
Mhm.
um, without going into too much detail
Yeah.
on how that's done. They really enjoy well-rounded people. It's kind of like, um, soon I'm going to be going out of town to um, set up animation for a show, and it's you know one of the things I was told was, if you end up getting there earlier than you're needed as an animator, to set up these figures and make sure that they're playing well in the space that you're in. If you're standing around twiddling your thumbs, don't be afraid to pick up a wrench
Yeah.
and help out, somewhere else. So uh, they really like that. And sorry, I had to pick up and come into my stairwell leading to my garage. Listener, I have a 3-year-old, and sometimes he wakes up and is upset. So um, that's
Uh,
but yeah, um, it's Animax is a dream job for me. It's something that every new project that comes in, it's a whole new list of um, objectives to try and accomplish, new techniques, new problems to solve. Not no one figure is the same,
unless it's exactly the same.
unless it's exactly the same. Right, right, right.
Yeah.
Like, we're ordering, 15 of this thing,
Yeah, yeah.
so you're gonna, and that's something else to touch on. When you're depending on if you're creating one figure for a show, versus something that you're going to replicate, it would change the way that you create it. Because you got to think about consumables whenever your um, a part needs to be replaced. So something like, say, if we're doing 3D prints as part of features for a figure, the repeatability needs to be there enough for something that you're going to make 15 times, over something you're going to make one time.
Yeah.
So if you've got a bunch of figures that you're going to do back to back to back, make sure that repeatability is there, because working between each department and what they have to do, and this is one of the cool things about Animax 2, is you've got these departments that talk to each other, and they're learning new problems as they go on these. So they're coming up with solutions for you that's like, hey, this would make our job so much easier if you added this little piece to this thing. And you know, if that saves people time, hands-on time, that's something we can add digitally to then 3D print or manufacture, that's going to save hours, then that's something that we do too. So but it's really amazing to work in a place that is unlike anywhere else in the world. And you know, I've told you this before, and I don't feel if I would have made any decisions differently, I wouldn't end up exactly where I am now.
Yeah.
All the decisions that I made landed me right where I am, and I'm extremely happy where I am. And yeah, I don't think I would change anything. I would continue to get grilled by my instructors and be 21 again in VFS.
Yeah. That's awesome, man. So, okay, closing. If you had to give one advice to a person, it's me, Pen. I just finished film school. I'm out. I'm an animator, and I want to get my first job. What would you advise for someone to get their first job? What to from it can be either from what to do, what not to do, things they should know, what to search, and whatever you think that you would have like also to know.
Oh, don't do what I did. Listen to your mentors, get the work done, get that job, because you know don't pay for your ego or with time of your life. Like I said, it was 6 years, and I did have jobs that were freelance, but I don't count those because that wasn't exactly what I wanted to be doing. And my social life reflected that. I was, I would party and just have fun and be irresponsible. And, I think on some level, everybody needs that. But if you're going to go to school, go to school. Listen to your mentors, especially if you respect them and know what they're talking about. And you get a good gauge of that by asking the right questions. What do you want to do? Really think about that. Think about where you need to spend your time. Spend your time doing that. Don't get sidetracked. And find, even if you don't want to sacrifice your creative integrity or your vision, find a way to make it work with what your mentors are telling you. If they're telling you to use a rig and you have the story you want to tell, find a middle ground with that. Use the rig that they want you to use, or one that's already built if you want to be an animator, and do something that you like with it. Don't sacrifice your time and pay for it for years or even a couple years, and get that first job and get your higher learning on in that studio, because there's people that are there that have been in the industry probably 15 years, and guess what? You're going to learn from them. And you're gonna get everything that you need. That's what I would say to somebody coming out, is to don't do what I did.
Yeah, well, solid advice, man. And thank you. That was a pleasure. Thank you very much for this. That was a great interview and great talk. I'm not gonna say interview, was a talk.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you very much. And hopefully the people that are gonna watch this are gonna take something out of it. If you can, good. If you can't, whatever, I guess.
Yeah, you're a listener.
Yeah. Be a listener. But
no, thank you, Pam. I appreciate it, man.
Thank you very much. It was very, very informative. I know you for a very long time, and even I learned stuff about you today. So yeah, hopefully people that are just starting in the industry find something very helpful for them in this podcast. Either what to do or what not to do based on your experience. And again, thanks again. I guess we'll see you on the next episode. Thank you very much. Have a good night.